The wedding hall in Houston was glowing with lights and laughter. It was a big day for Malik and Anika. Everything looked perfect. Beautiful flowers, soft music, and guests dressed in their best clothes. People were smiling, dancing, and taking pictures. But behind the joy, something strange was happening. Malik, the groom, stood near the entrance in his fine cream-colored outfit. He looked handsome and confident, but his eyes were serious. He leaned close to the wedding planner and spoke in a low voice. "Please move her seat to the back," he said. The planner looked confused. "You mean your mother's seat?" "Yes, far from the front. Make sure she's not near the cameras." The planner hesitated but nodded and walked toward the front table. Sitting there was Cynthia, Malik's mother. She looked proud in her soft lilac dress and matching head wrap. She was sitting alone, quietly, her eyes moving around the room. When the planner reached her and explained, Cynthia's smile faded. "There's been a small change, Ma," the planner said. "Please come with me." Cynthia stood up slowly. She didn't say a word. She just followed the planner to a seat in the very back of the room, away from the lights, the stage, and her only son. Some guests noticed. They began whispering. One old uncle leaned toward his wife and said under his breath, "He can't even sit next to the woman who gave birth to him." Anika, the bride, saw what happened. She was shocked. She rushed over to Malik before the ceremony began. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice full of emotion. "That's your mother. She wasn't supposed to come," Malik said, avoiding her eyes. "I didn't invite her. But she's here now, sitting alone in the back. Why would you treat her like that?" Malik didn't answer. He looked away and fixed his cuffling. From her seat, Cynthia watched her son enter the room with his bride. She clapped softly, but her eyes didn't shine with joy. They were full of pain, holding back tears. She looked small in that big hall. She didn't smile anymore. Malik didn't glance at her, not even once. As the music played and the celebration continued, people kept glancing at the back of the hall. The question hung in the air, quiet but heavy. What kind of mother would be treated this way? Or, what kind of son would do it? No one knew the truth. But they could feel it. Something was deeply wrong. Malik grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. He was a quiet, smart boy who liked to read books and solve puzzles. Even from a young age, people said he was special, a child with a big future. But life at home was hard. His mother, Cynthia, raised him alone. She worked 3 jobs as a cleaner, a cook, and sometimes as a street vendor, just to pay for rent, food, and school. She was always tired. Her hands were rough. Her face was always serious. There was no time for hugs or bedtime stories. Malik didn't remember her ever saying, "I love you." She only spoke when there was something to correct. If he brought home a test with 90%, she asked about the missing 10%. If he forgot to wash his socks, she shouted. When he cried, she told him to stop being weak. She never hit him hard, but her words felt like slaps. Malik began to keep everything inside. He stopped talking much at home. He stopped expecting kindness. Cynthia didn't mean to be cruel. She was just trying to raise a strong boy in a hard world. But to Malik, it felt like she didn't care. His father, Tony, was a name he barely knew. Cynthia never talked about him. Malik only saw one old photo hidden in a drawer, a tall man in a white shirt, smiling at the camera. That was all. For 16 years, Malik lived like Tony didn't exist. Then one day, Tony appeared. He came with soft words and strong promises. "You're my son," he said. "I want to help you. I can send you to America for school. You're too smart to stay here." Malik was shocked. At first, he didn't know what to say. But the idea of going to the US, of starting a new life far from Lagos, far from the shouting and coldness, it lit something in him. He said yes. Cynthia didn't take it well. She shouted for hours. "You don't know this man. He left us. You think he cares now?" Her voice shook the walls. She begged. She cried. She even tried to block the door when Malik packed his bag. But nothing stopped him. He left, and he never looked back. Years passed. Malik studied computer science in Texas. He was smart, focused, and quiet, just like he'd been as a child. He started a small tech company with 2 friends, and soon it grew fast. Today, it's worth millions. He bought a house. He bought a car. And then he met Anika, warm, smart, fun. They fell in love quickly. Everything in his life looked perfect, except one thing. He never talked to his mother again. There were a few phone calls in the early years, short, cold, painful. She once visited Texas without telling him, but he refused to see her. He felt angry every time her name came up. To him, she was the woman who tried to stop him from living his life. The woman who never showed love, only control. To others, it looked strange. Malik was kind to strangers, generous to employees, deeply in love with Anika. But when it came to Cynthia, he was like a wall, silent and distant. 10 years. That's how long it had been since he sat in a room with her. Now, as his wedding begins and she sits quietly at the back of the hall, people wonder what really happened between them. What broke their bond so badly that even on this happy day, a mother and son can't share a seat, or even a smile. There must be more to the story. 1 week before the wedding, Malik came home from work to find a surprise waiting for him. Standing in front of his house in Texas was his mother, Cynthia. She wore a simple dress and held a small suitcase. Her face looked tired from the long flight, but her eyes were calm. "I came to bless your marriage," she said softly. "You're my only child." Malik froze. His heart started beating fast, not from happiness, but from shock and anger. "You weren't invited," he said coldly. "I know," she replied. "But this is your wedding. I couldn't stay away." Malik didn't move. He stared at her like she was a stranger. "You shouldn't have come." Inside the house, Anika was decorating gift boxes. She heard voices and came outside. Her eyes widened when she saw Cynthia. "Hi, are you Malik's mom?" she asked, stepping forward with a smile. Cynthia nodded. "Yes, dear. I'm sorry to come unannounced. I just wanted to see my son before his big day." Anika welcomed her warmly, but she could feel the tension between mother and son. Malik's face was tight, his jaw clenched. Later, inside the house, he pulled Anika aside. "She's not staying," he said. "I'll book her a hotel near the airport." "Malik," Anika said gently, "why are you so angry?" He didn't answer at first. Then he looked away and said, "I invited Dad. Not her. She ruined everything in my life." Anika was quiet for a moment. "You never talk about her. What happened?" "She always made things harder. Cold, angry, always trying to control me. She hated Dad, even when he offered to help me. She couldn't stand to see me leave her." Anika nodded slowly. "I understand it was hard, but she came all the way from Nigeria. Maybe she's trying to make peace." "I don't want her here," Malik said. "This is my wedding, not hers." Later that night, Cynthia knocked gently on the door of the guest room where she was staying. Malik opened it halfway, not letting her in. "Just 5 minutes," she said. "Please let me speak." "I don't have anything to say to you," Malik replied. She looked down, hurt. "I just want you to know. I did what I thought was right." "You ruined everything," Malik said, voice low and sharp. Cynthia looked at him for a long time. Then she said something that made him stop breathing for a second. "If I ruined everything, why don't you ask your father why I left him?" Malik blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" But Cynthia didn't explain. She turned and walked away slowly, her shoulders heavy. Malik stood in the hallway, confused and angry. The words kept repeating in his mind. "Why don't you ask your father why I left him?" It was the first time he had ever heard her speak about the past like that, like there was something he didn't know. Anika found him sitting in the dark later. She sat beside him and placed her hand on him. "You only get one mother," she whispered. "And maybe, just maybe, there's more to her story than you think." Malik didn't answer. But something had changed. A door had opened, just a crack, and behind it, a secret waited. After that strange conversation with Cynthia, Malik couldn't sleep. Her words kept running through his head. "Ask your father why I left him." He sat in his office the next morning, staring at old photos on his phone. Pictures of him and Tony, smiling during college visits, birthdays, and tech conferences. His father had always been kind, calm, supportive. But now Malik started to feel unsure. Something didn't add up. He picked up the phone and called Tony. "Dad, I need to ask you something." "Of course, son. What is it?" "Why did Mom leave you?" "She said I should ask you." There was a pause on the line. A long one. Tony finally spoke. "Your mom, she was unstable. Angry all the time. Jealous, too. She didn't want me in your life. She always made things difficult. Did you do anything to her?" Malik asked carefully. "No. I was the one who tried to bring peace. Your mother never trusted anyone. She imagined things. I stayed away for your sake." Malik didn't know what to believe. The conversation left him feeling cold inside. Later that week, Anika found an envelope on the kitchen table. It was addressed to her in Cynthia's handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. Cynthia wrote, "Dear Anika, I'm sorry if I brought tension into your home. I only wanted to see my son happy on his big day. But there is something I've never told him, something I don't know if I ever should. I'm writing this to you because you are kind, and I think you may understand." When Malik was 16, he came back from a weekend with Tony, and he was different. He didn't speak. He looked scared. That night, I found him crying in bed, shaking like a leaf. I asked what happened, but he said nothing, just hugged me and held on like he did when he was small. I felt something was wrong, deeply wrong. I reported it to the police. I told them everything I could. But Tony disappeared right after that. No one could find him. Not for almost 2 years. Then he came back, smiling like nothing ever happened. Malik never spoke about it again. I didn't push. I didn't want to hurt him more. Maybe I was wrong not to say something. But I thought silence would protect him. I thought forgetting would help him heal. He needed his father. But I couldn't protect him from the truth, or from the pain that came with it. "Cynthia." Anika sat still, the letter shaking in her hand. Her chest tightened. She read it again, just to be sure. Malik walked into the room minutes later and saw her face. "What's wrong?" he asked. She tried to hide the paper, but it was too late. He grabbed it. "Read it." Every word. His hands trembled. What is this? Anika stayed quiet. She thinks he did something to me? That I don't remember? His voice cracked. He stood there, not knowing what to feel. Anger, confusion, sadness. All of it came rushing in at once. I would remember something like that, he said loudly, but his voice didn't sound sure. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every memory of his father came floating back, kind smiles, small touches, quiet talks. But some memories felt blurry. Others felt wrong. He couldn't tell why. The next day, Malik decided to visit someone, an old neighbor who had moved to Texas years ago, just like his mom, Auntie Beezy. She had lived 2 houses away from them back in Lagos. She welcomed him in with open arms and warm jollof rice. But when Malik mentioned his mother, her face grew serious. Your mother suffered a lot, my dear, Auntie Beezy said. People thought she was being overprotective, but she was fighting battles none of us saw. What do you mean? Malik asked. She once told me she feared your father. Said she saw things in him she couldn't explain. That's why she tried to keep him away. And when you left with him, I remember how broken she looked. She was always strong, too strong sometimes, but that time, she cried in my arms like a child. Malik sat in silence. Why didn't anyone tell me? She tried. But you didn't want to hear it. You loved your father, and she didn't want to break your heart. So she stayed silent. Malik's chest hurt. Everything he thought he knew was now full of cracks. He drove home, the world around him quiet and strange. The letter, the phone call, the memories. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle he didn't want to finish. But something inside him knew. He had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The past wasn't what he thought, and the woman he had pushed away for so long might have been the only one truly trying to protect him. Malik sat in the living room, the letter from Cynthia lying on the table in front of him. His heart was heavy. For days, he had been walking around like a ghost, unsure of what was real. He couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. He needed answers. He knocked on the door of Cynthia's hotel room. When she opened the door and saw him, her eyes filled with surprise and worry. Can we talk? Malik asked quietly. She nodded and stepped aside. He didn't sit down. He stood there, hands shaking. Did you really think he did something to me? Cynthia looked down. Her voice was soft. I didn't think, Malik. I knew. I saw it. Then why didn't you tell me? He shouted suddenly, pain rushing out of him. Why did you keep it from me all these years? Cynthia looked up at him, tears in her eyes. Because I didn't want to break you. You broke me anyway, he yelled. I saw the signs, she said through her tears. I begged him to stay away. I called the police. I tried everything, but you always loved him more. And I didn't want to take that away from you. I didn't want you to carry the weight of what he did. You were just a boy. Malik couldn't speak. His mouth was open, but no words came. He sat down slowly, his head in his hands. His mind was spinning. For a long time, there was silence between them. The kind of silence people sit in during deep therapy, where nothing is said, but everything is felt. And in that silence, Malik started to remember. Not clear images, just small pieces. Tony's hand on his back a little too long. A strange look. A locked door. Malik crying in his bed that night, not knowing why he felt so cold, so wrong. Cynthia holding him tight, not asking questions. Malik began to cry. I didn't remember, he whispered. I didn't remember until now. Cynthia reached out to touch his hand, but stopped halfway. She didn't want to push. Malik looked at her, and for the first time in many years, he saw her not as the cold mother from his past, but as a woman who tried to fight alone. A mother who carried pain so her child wouldn't have to. The wedding day arrived. The hall was full, music playing, guests laughing. Everything looked perfect on the outside. Then Tony walked in. He wore a dark suit and smiled as he greeted people. He looked proud, like a man enjoying the spotlight. He made his way to Malik, arms open for a hug. But Malik didn't move. He just looked at him, his face calm and still. Then he turned and walked away. Tony stood there, confused and embarrassed. Minutes later, Malik took the microphone. The room grew quiet. Today we celebrate love, Malik said, his voice steady. We celebrate new beginnings. But love is not just about happiness. Love is also truth. And truth can be hard. He paused. I used to believe that protecting the truth was the same as protecting. But now I know, silence can be dangerous. The guests looked around, unsure of what he was talking about. I want to thank someone today. Not just for raising me, but for protecting me, even when I didn't understand it. Even when I hated her. He looked toward the back of the room, where Cynthia was sitting quietly, her head down. I want to thank the woman who stood in the fire alone. The woman who loved me enough to carry pain by herself, just to keep me whole. My mother. Gasps filled the room. Cynthia looked up, shocked. Malik turned to the wedding planner. Please move my mother's seat to the front. The planner nodded quickly and rushed to her. As Cynthia was led forward, some guests stood and clapped. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Cynthia reached the front and sat down slowly, still shaking. Malik walked over, took her hand, and kissed it. He didn't need to say more. The truth had finally come out. And for the first time in a long, long time, they were no longer carrying it alone. After the wedding, Malik made a decision. He blocked Tony's number and deleted all contact. No more calls. No more visits. That part of his life was over. He and Cynthia began therapy together. It was not easy at first. There were long silences, old anger, tears. But they kept showing up, week after week. In one session, Malik turned to his mother and said, "You didn't fail me. You protected me the only way you knew how." Cynthia cried, not because she was hurt, but because for the first time in years she felt seen. At home, Malik sat down with Anika late one evening. They were watching the baby room slowly come together, soft blue walls, tiny clothes neatly folded. "I want to be the kind of father who tells the truth," Malik said, "even when it hurts. I don't want secrets in this house." Anika smiled and squeezed his hand. "You already are that kind of father." Cynthia started coming over more often. One afternoon, she brought a small brown box. Inside were old photos, baby Malik in her arms, birthday cakes, school awards, drawings from his childhood. "I kept these," she said, "even when you didn't want me around. I never stopped being your mom." They laughed over some of the photos. Malik had forgotten how happy some moments really were. Maybe not everything had been cold. Maybe love was there, just quiet and hidden under fear. 1 month later, Malik gathered his company's leadership team. He shared his story privately, told them why he believed mental health mattered more than ever. They created a new fund, one that supported therapy and healing for abuse survivors. It offered free sessions to those who couldn't afford them and education for families in pain. News of the fund reached a local journalist. A short story was published a few weeks later titled, "The Groom Who Moved His Mother's Chair." The article didn't give all the details, but it touched many hearts. People from the community began sending messages, some to thank him, others to share their own painful truths. Malik didn't hide anymore. He didn't pretend. He faced his past, and because of that, he started to build a better future, for himself, for his mother, for his new family. Healing had begun, and this time it was real. 1 year later, the house was full of soft baby sounds and warm sunlight. Malik sat on the living room floor, gently bouncing his baby girl in his arms. She laughed, tiny and full of joy, her little hands reaching up to touch his face. Cynthia sat on the couch, watching quietly. Her eyes followed every move. Malik smiled and made silly faces, and the baby giggled again. "You're good with her," Cynthia said softly. Malik looked up, his face calm and full of love. "I'm learning," he said. There was a short silence. Then Cynthia leaned forward, her voice low but steady. "You broke the cycle," she whispered. Malik looked at her, his eyes full of emotion. "You gave me the strength to," he said. Cynthia's eyes filled with tears, but this time they didn't come from pain. They came from peace. She had spent years carrying guilt, hiding the truth, and feeling like she had lost her son forever. But now she saw him, not just as her child, but as a man, a father, a healer. She wiped the tear from her cheek and smiled. Outside, the sun was setting slowly, casting a golden light across the room. Malik held his daughter close and kissed her forehead. She yawned and rested against his chest. Some stories are ugly. They are full of pain, silence, and wounds that take years to understand. But when you face them, really face them, healing begins. Hey besties! Thanks so much for watching till the end. If you loved this emotional ride, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts. And of course, subscribe for more powerful, drama-filled stories that hit deep. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.